Welcome to Love Being American, where you can catch up on the major events and political issues that are happening around the country. Now introducing two millennials who love being American. Your hosts, Andrew and Henry.
Happy Friday.
Welcome back to the next episode of Love Being American.
As always, I'm Henry.
I'm Andrew, and we're happy you're joining us. This evening, we're going to be going over two topics that just came up this last week. The first one is the Oregon Militia Standoff.
Second being the Obama executive order on gun control.
So with that being it, before we jump right in, we're drinking some beer again.
As always, right now, Andrew was kind enough to give me a Coors Light, and the reasoning for it is I actually went snowboarding, and I was feeling dehydrated. And he asked me, like, what kind of beer you want? I'm like, honestly, I'm really thirsty. I need some hydration. Hook a brother up. What can you give me? Of course, he goes with the Coors Light. Anybody who drinks Coors Light knows it's about as refreshing as you get. I mean, not a high alcohol content, enough to
more water than beer.
More water than beer. So, like, you get your hydrating and your buzz on at the same time. And when I said that, I thought to myself, what can I get Andrew? And Andrew, what'd I give you?
He got me a Bud Light.
We're staying hydrated today. We gotta, I mean, I know it's cold, it's the winter, but you always gotta stay hydrated. First thing you do in the morning, drink some water. Last thing you do at night, drink a Coors Light.
Going with America's favorite light beers.
Right?
Should have gone some Milwaukee brew.
Maybe a little PBR, Pat's Blue Ribbon.
I honestly haven't had one. Those are like kind of hipster beers right now. Like I always,
but they're not like traditionally. They're not hipster beers.
I know, but
now they are.
The hipsters definitely stole them because I hear like PBR is like a hipster.
Like
beer.
Lana Del Rey drinks it. I mean, it's
trying to make them trendy,
right?
That's kind of weird.
I don't know.
They're trying to steal it because I feel like Pabst is kind of like America's beer. They got the.
That's
American
what I was saying. It's all red,
on.
white, and blue. Like that's a beer we should be drinking.
That's what we drink on the 4th of July.
Every 4th of July.
So, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So, we're going to jump off. We're going to start talking about the standoff that's going on in Oregon right now. If you haven't heard, there's a group of militiamen who have basically are taking a stand against the federal government by holding some ground in Oregon. And this is the 7th day of it. So, go ahead.
The reason why, they're I guess, blockading or barricading themselves in the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge.
So we'll bring it back. How this whole thing started off was there's a family, the Hammonds, and two ranchers, Dwight Hammond Jr., 73 years old, and his son Steve, were convicted of federal arson charges stemming from a pair of fires on federal land near their ranch. Now, this is reported the first fire happened in 2001 and was to cover up their illegal poaching of a deer on government property. So what, they shot a deer?
So my guess is I would probably guess that this land isn't definitely marked. I mean, this is acres of land. For them to have a fence around the entirety of both properties, their properties in the federal government, it's kind of a stretch. So if you're out in the acres of land you have and you see in your scope a deer, you don't know if that's necessarily on your property. It's not like there's a fence that stops you from going across that land. So it could have been 100 feet inside the government's land.
I mean, and also, what if that was a 10-point buck? You're going to take that shot.
How are you not going to take a shot at a 10-point buck?
Screw the federal land, right?
And these gentlemen probably have a tag, I would assume. Or maybe that was what the problem was, is that that was the illegal poaching. They didn't have a tag, but if you see a 10-point buck, how do you pass that up?
You don't. So then they set a fire to cover up their tracks. Clearly illegal here. Like, they shouldn't have done that. They should have just, I don't know. They should have been smarter about it. Setting a fire that causes a lot of attention.
How does that cover your... I guess it literally will cover your tracks.
Yeah. So that, in my opinion, that's clearly illegal. The second fire was reportedly set in 2006 And it was as a defensive measure to protect the ranch from an approaching lightning-sparked wildfire.
I believe there was also there was a plant there, a weed that was going to intrude onto their property and destroy their crops.
I heard that as well. I don't know if we can confirm it because it doesn't have anything.
But that is a common practice.
Yeah.
If you have a weed or something that's going to destroy your crop, you got to get rid of it or halt its expansion. Otherwise, you're going to lose your family business, your livelihood.
Yeah, I agree. So when the second fire reportedly endangered volunteer firefighters and campers nearby, and the government eventually ended up wanting to seek $1 billion in damage. I get the second wildfire. You're trying to protect your farm, your ranch, your livelihood. No one's, doing anything about it seems like. So then you set a counterfire, right?
The government probably isn't allocating the resources to protect the farmer's land. Yeah, would be my guess.
That'd be my guess as well, because the government, in my opinion, hardly does anything right. So eventually, these two were sentenced under a law called the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. And the first, it's pretty interesting that they were sentenced under an anti-terrorism law, because I guess arson on federal land
is under that category.
And it's 1996, so post 9/11.
Pre 9/11.
Pre 9/11. That's what I meant. So I don't really see how they pulled this law out. I don't see at all how this is any form of terrorism. They're just kind of being stupid, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Stupid for the first one.
Reckless behavior.
Yeah.
Even the second fire, they admitted, got a little out of hand.
It did.
And firefighters, that's what they do. That's their job. They will create a fire, a controlled fire, so that a wildfire doesn't go and run rampant. They will take a little bit of damage here to prevent a bigger problem later. I don't think this Hammond family are firefighters, and they don't have a fire science degree of any sort. So for them to do this, they've probably done this. My guess is they've done this before.
Yeah.
These two occasions. I don't think one day they're like, we're just going to create a fire. Maybe it's possible, but I would guess that in the family, this guy's 73 years old. He probably has he's done this stuff before.
Yeah, he's been around. So what ended up happening was the first federal judge that handled the case concluded that the mandatory sentence was too stiff.
Of 5 years?
Yeah, it was a mandatory sentence of 5 years. So he gave both of them lighter sentences, which they served, which kind of makes sense. Doesn't seem like terrorism to me. 5 years seems like a long time. So they gave them lighter sentences. But what happened was recently, this is what sparked this whole controversy, was that the U.S. attorney called foul play, and then the Ninth Circuit imposed their mandatory minimum, ruling the Hammonds were basically ordered to go back to jail and finish out the 5 years.
So they were charged twice, and
which would be odd.
That's unconstitutional to be charged twice. However, under this Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996, you can be tried twice. So that is how the U.S. attorney was able to convict them twice, which is surprising. That's kind of what sparked this this Bundy family. And we've probably all heard, or some of us have heard of the Bundy family before.
Yeah. So what happened was they were reported to go back to jail. And then all these ranchers around America, all these people started to get really upset because once again, it's like almost the federal government, taking advantage of these ranchers,
you think
being unfair towards them.
They can't afford if they're farmers, they can't afford a $1 million damage fine.
No. So there was a protest, and out of this protest, all these ranchers from around the country came, and two of these ranchers who led the protest were Ammon and Ryan Bundy. And the Bundy family has faced off against the federal government before.
In Nevada in 2014. And it was kind of a serious...
Yeah, you may have heard of this because this got national news attention. I'd say this it's probably got comparable the same amount of attention this has been getting in the news, but the Bundy family faced off against local police and the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, BLM for short. And what happened with this was that the feds restricted the land used for grazing around the Bundy family. They're basically, the Bundys were letting their cows graze on federal land.
For over 2 decades.
Yeah,
they had been grazing.
22 years. And the government was fining them because this was illegal. And this was illegal because, okay, so under the Endangered Species Act, to protect the desert tortoise, they restricted the land around the Bundy's farm for grazing because they wanted to protect this desert tortoise, which
is crucial to the ecosystem in Nevada. Clearly.
Yeah, he's clearly kidding if you can't sense the sarcasm here. I mean, I don't know. That I feel like I don't want the tortoise to die, but at the same time, like,
can we relocate?
Evolution? I'm sorry. Can we put him somewhere? Are there enough zoos for it?
I mean, we deport illegal immigrants back to Mexico all the time. We can't relocate a tortoise to other lands that are habitable.
Now you're just being insensitive towards animals.
I have a problem.
No, but at the same time, like, this tortoise shouldn't interfere with these people's livelihood and their business, right?
Absolutely.
This
Who do we care more about?
business.
People and their business, or a tortoise?
In this case, I care more about the people. I don't care about
Absolutely.
the tortoise. So Bundy was ordered to pay 22 years of grazing fees, which totaled around $1 million, because his cows were grazing on this empty federal land.
Well, it's not empty. There's tortoises there.
Yeah, there's tortoises there. My bad. Anyways, what happened was the feds, and he refused to pay, so the feds ended up rounding up, I think, half of his cattle. No, 1/3 of his cattle they basically took into custody, and after that,
cattle into custody.
Yeah, took it into custody. They put the handcuffs on the cow, got the udders all zip tied up, so couldn't produce any milk. Basically, what ended up happening was, there was a standoff. All these ranchers and other militiamen came to Bundy's side, and it escalated pretty quickly.
There was a face-off. There was a face-off
on a highway.
Federal officers and local police were literally in a Mexican standoff. Guns are pointed at each other. The both sides are ready to fire. They're ready to throw down for the farmers for their land and for their grazing rights, and the local police to...
A police dog even got kicked, which is like kicking a police officer.
Right?
Which is pretty serious.
Wait, who kicked the dog? You kicked my dog?
I didn't kick your dog.
You kicked my dog.
So what ended up happening was Bundy won. So
he didn't have to pay that $1 million.
Yeah, he didn't have to pay the $1 million. He got his cow back, and no one got in trouble for anything.
But he wasn't allowed to graze there anymore, was he?
No, he couldn't graze there anymore. But he basically got away with it, and the standoff worked. So now the Bundys see what's going on with the Hammonds.
Fairly similar situation.
Yeah. And so they go up there and they basically organize a protest. It started out as like this friendly protest in front of the courthouse, and then a group of militiamen and the Bundys, in a sense, break off, and they go take control of the, how do you say it?
The Malheur?
Yeah,
Malheur, National Wildlife Refuge.
And that's a federal building, very small building, by the way.
Near
this
Burns,
is like
Oregon.
A little village hut, it looks like.
For the protection of species of birds.
And their goal is that the Hammonds be released from jail, and that the surrounding federal land be created to local control instead of government control.
Because they, in their minds, and it's a valid point, their tax dollars goes to this land anyways. So they feel that they have the right to, occupy and best manage it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. And I kind of agree. Honestly, if you go look up the Malheur, it's Malheur National Wildlife Refuge.
I guess this is the problem that I personally have with this Bundy and their bunch is, if you're, trying to accomplish something, barricading inside of a wildlife refuge is not, I mean, the government's not going to care too much.
No, and it's like a bird refuge.
It's a bird refuge.
And it's kind of really lame.
It's like a big birdhouse.
Yeah, and it looks really stupid. And
reports were there are 150 of these protesters.
Yeah.
In reality, it's come out 15 or 20.
Yeah, it's maybe 15
And
or
they said
20.
they're going to be here for years. That's what the Bundy said.
Yeah, I'm calling bluff. I
Bluff.
mean, how many
Years.
of them could afford to be there for years?
They
One.
can't. The Bundy said that they're going to pay for food and stuff, but why? I mean, I think the government would cede the National Refuge Wildlife Park if they really wanted, like, oh yeah, we're still going to impose all this. You can have it. We'll build another one.
We don't care. It's funny, but them being there, I guess they could. One theory is, we'll stay here and claim this land until it gets figured out, and then other militiamen or people who are worthy of the cause will come and help us. And what's funny is this actually happened. So a group, militia group, and I don't know if these people are even, there's been reports that these people are like we're never in the military. They're not military men. They're just like military
they claim
wannabes.
To be.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've been hearing from a lot of people. But a militia group from Arizona came up there on Wednesday night, Bundy's group and the militants from Arizona broke out into a fight.
They fought with themselves.
Yeah, they violence broke out at the Bundy camp on Wednesday because Bundy's group and the outside Arizona group, the Arizona group's leader said he wanted to get women and children out of the compound because I guess there are women and children
Very
there.
reasonable.
Which makes sense, but the Bundy bunch weren't having it.
They wanted the women and children who were there. Why were there women and children there in the first place? What kind of irresponsible husband and father would bring their children to this cause?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Fortify a national wildlife bird sanctuary.
I don't know. I mean, I understand this group's grievances.
I understand the grievances as well. This is, I would say, a very reasonable demand. As far as, I don't believe that these people serve their time. They're not terrorists by any means. They were charged once. They fulfilled their duty. They served their time. They didn't protest it. They were very reasonable. They said, okay, we did this. We were in the wrong, and we will set it. And they even went back too. The second time, they didn't fight it. It's other people who I think have vested interests that are fighting for this cause, and that's. Well, there's an ulterior motive to this Bundy and his bunch.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of people are calling Bundy in this group terrorists for occupying this thing. For going and occupying this nature center, saying that they're terrorists and that if this were a group of Muslims or something, that this would be a terrorist act. And my grievance with that is these people haven't killed anyone. I mean, yeah, they're threatening to fight to the death, but I think that's more rhetoric. Nothing's ever going to come of that. They haven't killed anyone. They haven't hurt anyone. They're literally just a group of Americans who are upset with the federal government. So they're kind of taking a stand. In a sense, that's kind of like the most American thing you can do.
How they're doing it?
I don't necessarily. I don't agree with how they're doing this. I think, this ruling got appealed to all the way up to the Supreme Court and got denied, right? So this went through the judicial branch the way it should, and everyone found them guilty, so it came back down. And I think at that point you lost. I don't know if there's any other ways to go about it. I don't necessarily think this is the right way.
I don't think this will accomplish the goals that they want to have accomplished.
But for them to be called terrorists, I don't think so, because all they're really doing is standing up to the federal government in a sense that...
What's the difference between this and a sit-in?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting at. It's a sit-in with guns, basically,
a sit-in with guns. So I could see why that could be
semi-threatening violence, but it's not really cutting that. They're just trying to flex a little bit. They're ranchers. They're not college kids with hoodies and backpacks sitting in a hall. They're ranchers with guns.
Family, they're farmers.
Yeah, they're not willing to die for this cause.
I guess, people would consider this a conspiracy theory, or these people would be conspiracy theorists because they believe that the government's out to get them and everyone and confiscate all land and control all this land. That's a little bit of a slippery slope. I mean, there was arson that endangered volunteer firefighters. There was supposed illegal poaching. there were laws that were broken, and that's the problem. That's the initial problem. Now,
in them occupying this, it's forced the local school district to close down because the school district can't ensure safe
safety
passage,
of the children.
Yeah, to and from school, and that's also a problem too. And there's reports that people in Burns, Oregon, don't even want this because it's kind of outsiders. It's not even people who
these
are
aren't
from
people
there.
from there.
They're kind of like, get out of our town,
right?
So, and I'd be the same way if I were them, to be honest.
So that's what I don't like about this Bundy grunge. They got a little cocky after they won their little...
Yeah, they think they're above the law a little bit.
And then they think they're going to start, I don't know, a national movement, when really they are causing, at least for this community, a bad image of this community. Because while it is all outsiders, you associate this with this town. And that's why these people don't want these outsiders in there. Because they may not necessarily agree with what the federal government did. However, they don't want this kind of negative publicity.
Yeah, I think they're like almost in a sense choosing the wrong battle. Like, this isn't your time to accomplish what I think the Bundys want to accomplish.
Absolutely not.
They're kind of picked the wrong fight. I think it's kind of the same.
In this day and
sense.
age, I don't think that they're going to do anything with the guns. The fact that they have guns and they have the potential for violence is not going to be effective. If you want a protest to be effective in a democracy, in a civilized country, it must be peaceful. You must have a peaceful protest in order for it to be effective. Otherwise, you will not have the backing of the populace.
Yes, but I think how these people see it is that the government is, I think from their perspective, they're almost viewing the government is this big federal giant that's way overstepping its ground and coming in as almost like not necessarily a dictatorship, but some other role, right? From their perspective, I think that's how they're seeing it.
These people have experience in farming and what it takes to run a farming business and how to sustain their families. The federal government does not employ people that write these regulations for these lands that are properly educated in agricultural background.
Yeah, that's a problem. The feds are imposing these laws, and they're written, by people with no agricultural experience or background, and they have little knowledge of what it takes to produce, food and crops for this country. And then that's where you get this this problem between the dispute between the
grievances are warranted,
the land management,
I believe, and the management of the land. Mm-hmm. The process and the methodology of going about it, I don't believe is proper.
I don't agree either. I think that there's so many other ways you could do this. Yes, a peaceful thing might get more positive attention, especially from the media. And if you're going to have something violent occur, like it should be for a very, 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 very,
that's your very last resort.
Yeah, that's your very last resort.
That's when your life and your livelihood is threatened.
Yeah.
But even then, if you fight back, then you're at that level. I mean, if you look at the civil rights movement, they were being attacked by firefighters, police dogs, and they stayed peaceful, and that's why that was successful. Violence in this day and age is frankly not the answer.
Yeah, unless the government's trying to totally take over our lives.
Right.
But that's so far from happening.
Absolutely. Now, how do you think this is going to end? How do you think this is going to go? I don't see this as being a successful venture. I think it's going to lose traction, lose steam. We've talked about the media, the 24-hour news coverage and how that works. I think this is going to blow out. If they don't have more people and more support behind this in the very near future, it's going to wither away.
I'm giving this till March 17th. Bold prediction. This ends.
St. Patty's Day?
Yeah. Is that St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.
All right. This ends on St. Patrick's Day. That's my prediction. And I don't think it's going to end well. I think that this time the Bundys got away with it once. The Bundy bunch got away with it in Nevada.
They're not getting away with it.
No,
again.
I think that eventually they're just going to get charged. Oh, I forgot to mention that the sheriff, actually, the local sheriff, offered a peaceful end to this week-long occupation today and offered them everyone could go home scot-free if they just left now. and not get charged. They turned it down. So March 17th, I think this ends. I think that someone, maybe the Bundy sons, will go to jail, but I think someone's going to jail for this, and I think it'll be over by March 17th.
I give it February 1st. I don't think it's going to even last that long.
All right, we're going to put our predictions in the show notes, and then we'll see who's right.
Whoever's closest, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah. So, you know, the Bundys had this Oregon standoff. They all got guns, and coincidentally enough, while there's an armed standoff going on in the United States, Obama decided to introduce an executive order, and he basically did something. He issued an executive order on gun control, and that happened just a few days ago. And this caused a lot of controversy. Now, this is Obama's, I believe, his 227th executive order. Not very sure if that's the exact number, but he's issued somewhat around that.
And that's actually surprisingly low compared to
other presidents.
The past two presidents.
Yeah.
George Bush W had 293 executive orders. Bill Clinton had 364. Ronald Reagan had 381. So 227 seems, I mean, obviously he can do more. He still has time, but I doubt he'll catch up to Bush.
Yeah. And then, so the first executive order was actually
of the United States,
was issued on April 22nd, 1793, and it was issued by George Washington. The great George Washington. And it ensured that federal officers prosecuted any citizen interfering with the British and French War, which was interesting. And then the most executive orders issued during a presidency was FDR, and he issued in total, this is actually a lot, but he was in office for 12 years.
He had a little bit of extra time.
Yeah, so he issued 3,721 executive orders, which comes out to be about 307 per year, which is a lot. But if you go and look at a chart of like all the executive orders that were issued, like during the years where there was war, which was FDR, there's a lot more executive orders.
More.
Yeah, like crazy amount of more. So like during war, executive
you have
orders,
to get things accomplished.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
but in
time of war, you don't have to go through Congress.
So Obama just issued his latest one, and you know, it's not about the amount of executive orders, it's how much they overstep their position. So Obama could make an executive order that says Andrew and Henry get tacos every Tuesday for free.
Taco Tuesday for free. Anywhere we go.
And we highly encourage that one. We highly encourage that if you're listening.
If you want, we'll start a petition. We need 10,000 signatures.
Yeah, we really want free tacos every Tuesday. So, like, that doesn't affect the American people. So, this obviously does, right? To an extent. So, it's how much do these executive orders, like, go against the Constitution?
And exactly. Like, especially with the universal health care and now with gun control, those are very hot topics. And there seems to be an immigration. And with the gun control, people are afraid that this is going to get rid of the Second Amendment. And initially, if you just, from the media publicity, you would think that that's what this would do. That it's like, oh, this is undoing. This is going to be a slippery slope. What's next? You know? But if you look at the executive order, let's actually see what this gun control executive order does do. What restrictions does it apply? So if you're in the business of selling firearms, you must get a license and conduct a background check. No matter if you are a gun show, store, or over the internet, if you are distributing guns, you must do a background check. Very reasonable.
However, it does stop short of universal background checks. So this executive order does not put a universal background check in place that like every single person has to get. There's still
loopholes.
Yeah, there's still loopholes.
Sure, you go to Arizona and purchase a firearm very easily without a background check. I mean, currently gun sales by hobbyists and collectors, they do not have to require a background check. So let's say if you wanted a Browning automatic rifle from World War II, it could be considered a memorabilia or collector's item, and that you would not have to have a background check. But a Browning automatic rifle is a very powerful weapon.
Yeah, so now you do have to get a background check.
So now with this executive order for those type of purchases does require. So that's okay. I'll take that. But if you're in the sales, by professional gun dealers, if you're engaged in the business of dealing guns, you do have to, that does require a background check. And also this requires the seller to obtain a federal license. This also does not set a threshold on what differentiates hobby sales from professional sales.
Yeah, which
another
is kind of
gray area. It's harder to distinguish.
Like if you sell 5 guns a month, are you a professional salesman
or
are you a hobby salesman? Or like selling and buying guns like as a hobby. So there's a little gray area there.
It'll narrow, but it's not going to close. Like say for gun shows.
Yeah, it doesn't close that.
It kind of keeps a loophole. I think one of the bigger things that this does is it employs a greater amount of staff by the federal government to look into who buys guns, background checks, and where these guns are being distributed to, tracking ammunition and guns. That's probably the biggest scope of what it does. Also, there's a $500 million investment to research regarding the mental health and looking into the mental health of people who purchase firearms.
It's not even just limited to that. It's $500 million investment, $1 million investment to give people more access to mental health help. So if someone thinks they have a mental health problem,
somebody's depressed, bipolar,
they can go see someone or talk to someone about it. Know that there's people to go talk to. Nothing wrong with that. Completely agree. They're hiring 230 more examiners, so background checks can be run 24/7, which, hey, actually isn't too bad because now there's more people to run background checks so you can get your guns faster, make sure it's more thorough. I don't have any problem with that, to be honest. Now, this also does 200 new FTA agents, which is ATF. To investigate and enforce gun laws. That's kind of like beefing up the security, stupid federal agency, which is whatever. Basically, the new agents are going to help enforce gun laws and track people down who are breaking them or using them wrong. This next one, and this one's kind of interesting to me because it depends on how you interpret it. And I'll explain it first, and I'll tell you what I think about it. So, a memorandum on smart gun technology. The Departments of Defense, Justice, and Homeland Security to study smart gun technology to prevent accidental shootings and allow better tracking of lost or stolen guns.
What does that mean? What is this smart gun technology?
Yeah, so it sounds kind of cool at first to maybe prevent accidental gunshots. I can see that being cool, but
what do you mean accidental?
So I pick up Henry's gun and accidentally shoot it. I don't really get that part, nor do I get how to better track lost and stolen guns. How are you going to track down a lost or stolen gun unless it's got like a chip in it?
Right.
And I don't know how I feel about the government.
I mean, if maybe they have those guns we saw in the James Bond where if it doesn't have your fingerprint on it, no one else can shoot it.
Yeah.
So are you going to put that on every gun? That will, I guess, increase the cost of guns, which maybe is the goal of it, to make it harder to purchase. But it seems unrealistic to be able to accomplish that.
Nor do I know. I don't know if I want that. What if I got shot and I dropped my gun? I want you to be able to pick it up and shoot. Right.
Exactly. So there are, I guess, discrepancies in how that smart gun technology is applicable.
And the only thing is, how do you track a lost or stolen gun unless it has like a chip?
Without a chip.
And I don't know if I want a chip in my gun. Where feds can see where it is.
Why? Or what if you're hackers? What if you're able to hack into the gun tracking database? Government's been hacked all the time to find out where somebody has a gun.
Yeah, or take control of your gun,
and
jam your gun.
Yeah, right?
I don't know. That one seems broad. I don't really know.
I don't know how it can be enforced.
Yeah. So that's all this does. So basically, a little stricter firearms, giving more money to mental health, hiring more people to help facilitate background checks, and then hiring more ATF agents to basically help enforce gun laws. That's all this does, which, to be honest, isn't that big of a
I don't think
deal.
it really
I don't think
does
it
anything.
does anything.
It's not going to change much. People are still, for example, if with this executive order, say if it was in place, like, in the past few years with all the recent mass shootings, the Associated Press looked into it and concluded that none of the recent shootings would have been prevented by this executive order.
Yeah, so
this stops short. It stops short of requiring universal background checks, and it does not ban large capacity magazines.
Yeah, so apparently President Obama looked into banning large capacity magazines, but he ultimately realized he didn't have the power to do that, so he didn't put it in there.
He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to. Obviously, with an executive order, you could do that. However, this is already getting enough negative publicity. If he tried to do that he would really, really be overstepping his bounds.
Yeah, that would be a blatant, I think, overstepping of his powers. This is also a surprise to me, at least, was the order did not ban people who were on the no-fly list from buying guns. He talked about this on
after the San Bernardino shootings.
Yeah, he talked about how it was stupid that people who were on the no-fly list could go buy a gun.
That is who you don't want to buy a gun. However, again, with government databases, there are often errors that accuse like a 2-year-old of being on the no-fly list. An old grandpa, World War II veteran, from being on the no-fly list. Like, these things happen at a frequent enough rate. I would say President Obama made the decision not to enforce it for those reasons.
What do you think of this executive order?
It's honestly just a bunch of jargon. It doesn't really do anything. It's not going to stop people from getting guns. I mean, even no matter what, it's kind of like the drug laws. It's not going to stop people from drug laws. The war on drugs hasn't seemed to stop people from getting drugs, from buying drugs, from distributing drugs. People are going to be able to buy guns, and this executive order doesn't limit mine, yours, or anybody, frankly, pretty much anybody's ability to buy a gun.
It doesn't. And I think this is more of a symbolic gesture more than anything.
It's that old slippery slope. He's putting an executive order on guns today. Tomorrow he's going to just outlaw them and still martial law and have them.
No, I'm saying this is more of, that's what some people think, but I'm saying this is more for show.
That's what the Bundys think.
That is what the Bundys think. I'm saying this is more for show. He cried when he was giving this, as he talked about Newtown, which is moving. I think, most people get choked up talking about that. How could you not? It's 23 kids who were killed. But I'm saying this is more symbolic for Obama saying, look at me, I'm trying to help
his
guns.
Legacy.
Yeah, this is something
what he promised he would do when he was being elected for his 2 terms.
Exactly. This is more for Obama's legacy. I'm not personally a fan of executive orders because it bypasses Congress. Look, in times of war, I think that this is acceptable, but overall, I think that executive orders really are something that are better off left undone.
I'm 50-50 on it, on executive orders for this reason. One, kind of along the line, if you need to get something accomplished, like in a time of war, you don't have time to go to Congress and go through that whole process. Now, when we're not at war, but I guess we're always at war in a sense, and stuff like this is just a unilateral decision made by the president, and it may be enforced by the Supreme Court because it really, in actuality, does not do much.
Yeah.
And so I could see it like the Supreme Court, they could stall and strike down Obama's orders.
It doesn't seem like they will. You guys probably remember, anyone listening, how Obama, this is all over the news. If you listen to this podcast, then you know about this. He tried to unilaterally overhaul the nation's immigration systems via the executive order that he issued. I think it was last year. But the Supreme Court actually issued an injunction on that, and the legality of his order is under review. So just like that's under review, we do have other branches and balances in place,
even for executive orders.
So this isn't the end all be all. If you really have grievances with what's in here, there is a chance that it might not get implemented. Plus, executive orders only stand with that precedent. So the next president can come in and basically get rid of all of them. But to be honest with you, I don't see anything in here that's like a very blatant overreach of his power.
It doesn't do anything, Frank.
I think this is more. Yeah, it's just more symbolic.
It's a symbolic gesture
of what he, of his presidency and his legacy, more than actually imposing effective gun control. Here's the thing: bad guys are bad for a reason. They're always going to acquire whatever they need to carry out what act they want to do.
Criminals will get guns.
Just like drug addicts will get drugs, people get drugs. Bad people are always going to get firearms. If they want to, go hurt people, I think the problem so many people have with this, and I agree, is that a lot of these laws that are being proposed and this, extra gun control safety basically just makes it harder for regular guys like you and me.
The good people from doing it. It doesn't stop the bad guys from doing. They're going to be able to do what they want to do and acquire these firearms, no matter what the law is. But it's the individual like you and me that is limited in our ability to, frankly, exercise the Second Amendment right. Now, this doesn't, I don't think, infringe on that whatsoever, but it limits the population who actually should have a gun for their own protection from the bad people from acquiring those. Because the average Joe isn't going to buy a gun for criminal purposes.
No.
So why would you limit those people who aren't going to commit crimes from buying weapons?
It doesn't make any sense. And we live in California
with the strictest gun laws, and
San Bernardino still happened. So that almost goes to show you that lots of these gun laws and all this dumb stuff that we have to jump through to get a gun, at the end of the day, doesn't make us any safer. We're not better off because of it. Look at Chicago. Look at Chicago. Chicago's got really tough gun laws and people are dying. It's one of the most dangerous places you could argue in in the world, like North America.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about that before.
The death rate,
the homicide rate is higher than any Latin American country.
Yeah, it's insane. And this is more of symbolic on Obama's part. He's tooting his own horn here, trying to say, look at me before his legacy's up. I don't know if it's really infringing on anything.
I don't believe so.
It's just his symbolic gesture, I guess, because
simple rhetoric.
There's been more mass shootings under his administration than any other. So I guess he's trying to make up for it somehow, but I don't think this is the right way. Anyways, that segues into our schmuck of the week.
So this schmuck of the week, this is actually, I did not hear about this. Andrew brought this to my attention. I'll let Andrew take the helm on this.
So I saw this on Twitter last night before I went to bed, and I thought it was really surprising. So in Poland, the Polish president, basically a law was just passed, and it secured government control of state-run TV and radio. So basically, the government
so any radio and TV networks in Poland are controlled by the government?
Yeah, so they have the power to, whoever the, CEOs or presidents of those companies, the president and the governing body has the power to remove them and replace them. So
if they're not distributing the media that best suits their...
So their version is that they're doing this so that they can ensure that the state-run TV and radio shows are distributing, basically, to steal Fox News is saying here, fair and balanced information. Obviously,
they're censoring the information that...
Yeah, obviously, I'm calling bullshit on that, right? Basically, the European Union knew that this was going to happen, and they kind of told Poland, I don't think you should do this.
Under the rug.
Well, no, they warned them. They're like...
a little bit. They significantly downplayed it.
No. What happened was they told them at first that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. Poland said, screw you, EU. We'll do whatever we want, which, because the European Union's a joke. So they went ahead and they did it, right? And now the EU's downplaying it, saying, well, no, it's not like completely hindering free speech. And here's why the EU is downplaying it. It's because Under Article 7 of the United Nations Treaty, it basically says that if a country in the European Union restricts the right to free speech, then that country loses its voting rights within the European Union Council. So from this move, Poland should technically be, in a sense, kicked out almost, or just lose its voting rights within the European Union. This totally violates it.
I could see why the European Union is downplaying it, because this is what Russia does. Russia runs their media,
yeah.
The state.
So does
radio
China.
And China. And how close in proximity is Russia to Poland and Poland to the European Union? If
it's in our strategical interest, right?
Absolutely. Because if you say, all right, screw you, Poland, you're out, who are they going to go to? They have one option, Russia. And if that comes into fruition, that's geopolitically significant to the safety of the European Union.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I didn't think about that, because I was mainly thinking about how the European Union's a freaking joke.
Is a joke. So that would be my guess if you looked into it deep, why they would not do it for defensive measures. But I mean, this is just another example of how the European Union has little to no power, and that you could do whatever you want and they're going to cave.
You know, and I don't know if the Polish people even have the right to organize and do this, but the Polish people should protest this. They should be up in arms about this, because this is
Absolutely.
huge. I mean, this is like taking away one of the core foundations of democracy, I believe. You know, free
Absolutely.
speech.
Knowing what your government is doing. I mean, we have already seen problems with that with the NSA and stuff. Imagine if the United States government would say, you know what, Fox, CNN, we're going to tell you what you can and cannot.
It's just. We should be clear though. It's just ones that receive state funding. So private news,
really?
Private news entities can still say what they want, but also at the same time, not everyone has access to those entities, because they cost more, like cable,
right?
Regular.
You can't. It's like HBO and stuff like that. You have to purchase it. You have to pay money.
Schmuck of the week, the Polish president, totally trying to be a bad guy.
He's a hindrance to freedom.
Yeah,
and we love being American, and we love freedom.
Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. We're giving away t-shirts every week. So if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, we'll ship you a free t-shirt. A free t-shirt this week is going to, this is going to Wildcat 8. We're going to reach out to you. We don't know your name yet. Yeah, you've been drawn. We're going to...
You should buy a Powerball ticket right now, because you're the lucky one to get our t-shirt. You might be the lucky one to win that $700 million.
What is it at? 700 million?
700 million.
That's... We need to go buy a lotto ticket. Yeah.
The thing is, they drew numbers at 7. Actually, it's probably published by now. I believe it's at 8:00 is when they release if anybody won. So somebody might have won by now.
Okay, well, let's hope nobody won,
because then I'm gonna buy it. This is the only time I'll ever buy lottery tickets, is when it's super high.
Please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate that. You have no idea how much that helps with the show ratings. It keeps us motivated.
Keeps us going.
We keep going.
You're the reason why we come back each and every week.
Exactly. So with that being said, I'm Andrew.
I'm Henry.
We love being American.